go. Hey guys, what is up? We are so excited to be here with you tonight. My name is Lacey Garza, and I am joined by my wonderful friends, Jennifer and Blue. Just to say a little bit about these two, Jennifer and Blue found me when, we've got to be approaching 4 years ago in the Hungry Bear. And so we have traveled through time together, and it's been so awesome. We have all kind of stuck to different systems. So I'm very human designy. At the same time, I interact with life in a wild way. I have channels 1-8 and 2551. So I do feel like I get into that mystical side of life. And then Jennifer's right there with me with the human designy stuff. She has 2 completely open centers. So she's had such a wild ride, just diving into those things and understanding the energy in herself. And then you come to Blue, who to me is more of the shaman, more of the person who is directly taking that information from life, maybe more of the mystical side. And so when we all come together, we are a dynamic trio. And I guess you could say we're internal astronauts. What do you guys think? Do you want to add anything to your intros? All right, well, to dive in, we are talking about allowing today. And this subject, you guys hear me say allowing like a million times a sentence. It's so near and dear to my heart. And the group of people that I've been with for so long, allowing has looked so important for all of us. And it's something that it's like, no matter how you frame it or how you talk about it, it just sounds right. It sounds like collectively right, almost like something that anybody could get behind in order to like love the people in their life. And with both of them having completely open emotions and almost being maybe beyond confrontation and truth, or maybe like on their own journey within that center, I think that they have such a unique way of seeing it, and the words they've collected around it are so cool. And so what do you guys think? I don't know who wants to go first, but do you want to maybe just open up what allowing is to you? And then maybe we could also talk about like, what does it look like to allow another versus what it looks like to allow yourself? How does that feel?
So I'll start off, allowing for me, the space when I met you, Lacey, the space that I was in mentally, spiritually, emotionally, physically, like I was on the threshold of just really leaping forward in my spiritual path. And when I was not allowed anywhere. And so the space that was created in the Hungry Bear was a space of allowing for me, allowing me to be whatever, and for it to sound like whatever, and to be able to open up. It was a safe space, so for me, allowing automatically feels safe. It's a safe space to just be who you are wherever you are. And I think that was just as significant in my journey. I didn't have to stuff anything down. I was accepted. I was allowed to go through all the stuff I was going through. And through that, I found my own power to trust my intuition, to trust myself. I would get positive and negative feedback, but I was able to discern for myself what that meant for me. And I wouldn't have it any other way. And so, as I go along in my journey, it's important for me to create that space of allowing others, because it was so significant for me, and freeing. It was very freeing. And so my goal is to create that space for others to feel safe, to just be.
And I guess for me, allowing has really been shifted, even in the last few weeks, even the last moments, right? So I think it's a long journey to get to these things. And I think sometimes we don't really appreciate the journey along the way because we're impatient when we want something to happen or we want to understand, or we're trying to force ourselves to see it before we're ready. And so I think that's been kind of a story in my journey. And I think both of you can validate. I'm one, I still need to talk through these things. And I still need to like express where I am in that moment and where I'm feeling, and am I allowed, am I going to allow myself, or am I going to let my mind talk the crap to me? All of the things that have played such an important role in my life, I've never even allowed myself because I never had enough belief in self to allow myself, because I've always listened to the mind instead of the body. I've been so fully disconnected from those two, I couldn't even allow myself enough to allow anyone else. And so I think that a part of this journey is finally like, first you have to get to a space that you can allow yourself. And then once you get to that space where you can allow yourself, you're allowed by others in different ways, I guess I would say. So some of the ways in which this has shifted for me just recently is I've had kind of a new relationship develop with a member of my mother's family. So it's a relative of mine, but I fully see like her relationship with her husband and just the way they operate has really given me like this sense that I haven't had before. It's given me like someone to fully witness how they see each other and see each other in relationships. And there's never a judgment about the way one person shows up. Like if they're tired and they go take a nap, okay, that's okay. Or the fact that neither one of them are ready to retire because they both fully enjoy their jobs. And even though they both want to have all these experiences and travel and all of this, that they're just allowing each other to continue without saying, well, if we don't do this, if we don't do that. It's such a relationship that I've never really fully been able to witness until this point in a relationship. So if I'm looking at something that doesn't involve me and I'm able to just observe and witness that, that's been a big thing in my life. I also have had this relationship with Blue where I can freak out, say all kind of profanity, be super mean, and be all up in my feelings and be in my crazy. And then she's like, okay, but you know why you feel that way, right? And it's like, for somebody to take the time to say and allow me to do that, but then call me back and say, okay, now can we take a look at this? And then I'm going to give you some space to let it sit. It's like, I'm fully seen for the crazy, but I'm fully seen for that being allowed. That's okay, that we all have those moments, that we all have those experiences. And for that to be allowed me to allow myself to get to where I am now, where I can see other people and I see their journey and I see where they are. And I fully accept where they are in that journey as a beautiful place to be because they're meant to be there at this very moment. And so whatever that looks like, it's perfect. And it may not be where they end up, but it is where it is now. And so, I mean, I can't think of a specific example of this necessarily, but just to fully see in their journey where their struggles are and where they're wanting to head to, but know that this is a place you kind of got to stop to figure things out, and it's okay. And then when you're ready, it's like, then the next level of information comes. And then it's like, oh, this is amazing, you know? And then you shift, and then you come to this place of pause, and that whole journey is beautiful. And I wasn't able to fully see that before. And I think we think that love is kind of codependent in a way. Like all the way in which love is explained to us, love in relationship is a problem, right? Because we talk about love as codependency. We're not really fully seeing and allowing the other person to experience life fully as their own unique being when we're in relationship. We can maybe do that for ourselves on our own, but we're not fully doing that when we enter any relationship. So when was the last time you maybe looked at your spouse or your significant other and you said, I'm so happy where you are right now. I love this place of exploration for you. I fully see where you want to go with this, and I'm here to support you in whatever that looks like. The usual conversation is, but how will that affect me? Wait, what? So I'm fully starting to understand how I can better show up in relationship with people, how I can be accepting, and how I want to be seen. So when I want to pursue my dreams, I'm not told, no. I'm said, or I'm not put down or said, you're crazy, or you're never going to be successful doing that. I don't want to place that judgment on anyone else. Whatever is happy for you, whatever your dreams are, I'm happy for how you feel, the way you choose to live your life. That's not what I want for myself. And so I want to be seen in that same way. So I need to treat others in the way that I want to be seen. Because when they see that, then they can pick up that reflection, that modeling, that I'll show up that way for you. And this is the way I want to show up. And I would like you to show up for me. So sometimes it's also about modeling so we can be the witness, so that we can be the observer to these types of relationships to help us get to this place.
And that's like a question for me. Like I feel like I'm never certain about anything. And I just kind of watch and I like collect coins in a little cup. And it's like, okay, question. By allowing someone fully, can I bring them to also allow me fully? And seriously, like, I believe that it's true. I believe that if you model it correctly and if people see you do it well enough, like they may not be able to do it for themselves yet, but like they can maybe identify when somebody's not. And that's a good place to start. Like, I can't explain why it's so hard to see this. And for me, allowing myself was the end. So it was so easy for me to allow the other, but I couldn't necessarily tell when they weren't allowing me. So like I would fully support their experience and be like, oh my gosh, like amazing, I will continue to whatever. And then maybe they ask me about where I'm at and I'm like, oh, well, this just happened. And maybe they say something like, oh, well, my friend was going through like a really bad thing like that, and they got out of it by doing this, or they started this opportunity, or like, you shouldn't have done that, like, whoa, hang on. Like, I just fully supported you in all of your choices. And for some reason, like, I can't tell when you're not supporting me in mine, so it's like, I had to step back into like a second period of aloneness to step into like my warrior outfit in order to be like, no, look, you are allowed. And I can tell that you're not allowing me because for this entire conversation, I have talked about my experience. For this entire conversation, you have also talked about my experience. I'm like, can you share how you feel in there? Like, how's it feel for you? What's it look like for you? And if you're incapable of doing that, you are living in the other person's body. Like, you think they know how they feel. You think you know how they feel. You think you know how they should think. You think you know what they should do. And you aren't in your own experience at all. You have abandoned yourself, and so me standing strong and being like, no, actually, like, I need to hear about your experience. I'm good on mine. Like, you can't take mine away from me. You can't say like it didn't happen like that, because it did for me. And that was such a long, hard one thing, and being able to stand tall in that and just accept every feeling that comes up. Like, how unfair is it that you can be married to a person and then you can start feeling feelings and you know they want you to move on? That is not in our control. But what we can do is ignore that and be like, no, like, I gotta stay, like, I'm gonna squish it down, like, that's not being yourself. Like, as soon as it's becoming apparent to you, if you are allowing yourself, you let it be known to yourself. You make the move that looks right. Like, you don't just ignore it, pretend it's not happening, avoid the confrontation. Like, it's just something that as I accepted that I could have all the darkness, that I could feel sad, mad, happy, see a vision, travel through time. It's like, the more I experienced inside myself, the more I could also allow another to experience, and it doesn't have to look the same. So to me, like, that's a hard point. And I think that a lot of people, when they first start thinking about allowing, it can't necessarily be seen yet. Like, how do you guys feel about that point of, like, seeing it, not seeing it?
Well, I just made a realization. I see how we struggle with this with our children, for those of us who are parents. And so I'm kind of gonna switch and be off track for a second, because you're talking about, like, spousal, your person, however you want to, frame or connotate those significant relationships in our life. But I think, like, for me, my struggle is right now is, like, fully hearing and listening to my son and not perpetuating the frustration that he's also feeling, and fully allowing him in his experience instead of wanting to parent my way through it. And I did that today. And so I'm having a moment where I'm realizing how much I didn't allow my child in this moment. And what does that really mean? Like, we do have to set boundaries, right? And we do have to say, because we want them to experience life, but we also have to help them learn what those boundaries should be, or what boundaries look like, or, whatever that happens to be. So I can kind of see, like, I'm doing a pretty good job in two areas, but I didn't do so great today. And it's not that I do poorly every day in this case, but today I didn't do so great. And I think it's because, with that fully open emotion, I was experiencing it beyond what I should have. I allowed too much of it inside and it stayed. And then it was reactionary. And so I was in that reactionary parental, I'm going to tell you what to do thing. Instead of it being, I see this for you, I hear what you're saying, and validating all those things, but saying, I'm here to collaborate with you. I'm not here to judge you. And it might have come off like there was a big judgment thing there, right? And what are you, okay, things that need protected, mental structures. Yeah, so same sort of thing, right? So it's, providing those things for our children, but also fully allowing their experience and being able to validate that. And I'm sorry I'm off on this tangent, but it, like, really touched home, like, the point to which I did not allow today. And I let that judgment, or that all the stuff that I was internalizing throughout the day, take over my best self showing up, but maybe you guys, I mean, you're both parents, like, what does that look like to you? Because Blue, like, you are a parent, like, what does that look like for you with your child? Like, how do you show up for him consistently in that way?
So just today, Kemp has been playing with a little girl, and so she wanted to put makeup on him today and paint his fingernails. And so the mom asked me, she was like, Blue, you know, is that okay? And I remember my dad, his voice popped in my head, you can't do that. That's not right. And then, you know, myself comes in. I'm like, he can do that. He can absolutely do that if that's what he wants to do. And so, you know, I'm like, sure, go ahead. And he loved it and had a great time. And just, you know, I thought to myself, that's all it is. And anything else is something attached to it, that I've attached to it, or that my father, you know. And so allowing myself the time and space to process those things, you know, yeah, I think it's a beautiful thing, you know. And when Lacey was talking about allowing, what was pounding in my head is boundaries, boundaries, you know. And my boundaries change, but the safety of allowance that I have for myself now, and also a tight circle of people, is always there. That safety is always there, which has allowed me to allow myself, others, and just like Lacey said, it happened for me. I allowed others before I allowed myself, you know. And I could see where it could go the other way, I guess, but I couldn't do anything for myself first. I couldn't love myself first. I couldn't allow myself first. I had to do everything externally, you know, with people around me. And I've used that all along my journey, you know. And to be able to do that for myself now, I couldn't live any other way. And I would never allow a space where someone wasn't allowed and safe to be whoever, whatever they are, you know. Yeah.
I don't know why the difference for me. Like I'm trying to correlate it to something, you know, like why I felt, I mean, I could allow other people, but then there would be a place where I'd always get to this judgment thing. I have this really definitive thing about justice and wanting things to be right. And it shows up all over the place. And I think that's part of the reason why I had to see myself first and allow myself first before I could fully see how I prevented fully allowing others because of that. And so I think that's why mine's flipped. I don't know if that makes sense to either two of you knowing me, but like I kind of think that's the reason why mine is such a different experience compared to the two of you, maybe.
Well, and it's really wild because for me, you know, mine happened in such a funny way. Like I was doing this network marketing business and I had been literally beating my head on the desk trying to help someone like reach a level of retirement. And I was just like, how can I help them? You know, like I had been diving into this for so long and it was to the point where it was just driving me crazy. And it was like, boom, like my mind shattered. And I was like, life is perfect. I said that out loud. I was like, life is perfect. They don't need help. I don't need help. Like we don't need to help each other, you know, because life helps me. That's how I do everything that I do. The problem is that when someone's cut off from that connection, they do think they need some authority, you know? And so like it's almost like I always knew it about myself. And that's why I was such an amazing helper. And then all of a sudden I saw it in them and I was like, what have I been controlling them? Like, have I not been and then I was like, I have not been allowing them. I've been trying to make a bunch of little me's that are just like me, walk, talk, and act like me, and it's like, that's always been leadership. And so it's nothing for us to be upset with ourselves about. It's the fact that the global background frequency is changing. So if leadership has always been about one authority figure who controlled a group of people for their benefit, like the sheep and the wolf, and they stay together through all time, is it love, is it hate, do they eat each other, love, I don't know, but it's like, it was always that way, and that was fine, it was good, we built a whole freaking global society. But moving into everyone being their own authority, like, it is that time that everyone gets to stand in their divinity, it is that time. And so allowing is just us restructuring our relationships to allow, that global background frequency change, and the way that we see each other changing, and our interaction changing, and all of this stuff. And it's so interesting. Like, I have the best story about allowing Vega, and I'll just give like a Spark Notes version, because growing up, my parents never forced a religion onto me, but I was very interested. Like, I wanted to learn about those things. And I had different relationships where I would go to church or like dive into someone's religious systems with them, and that was all fine, but I was always an atheist. I always told people, like, I was such a firecracker of a kid. I was like, I'm happy to go where the animals go, like, I'm saying this stuff as a fourth grader. And I just had this like basic sense of spirituality. I was like, all the masters are saying the same thing. Like, it's just in their way, their words, and it's just that we are all one, that we connect. And so I just very clearly had that concept, and that's kind of how I moved through life. And so with Vega, he's 7, and I've had different people look at us like, so what do you teach him? Like what's his spirituality? And it's funny because he also has the shaman channel, and I've never pushed anything on him. So my whole family has watched me never push anything on him. And over the past couple of months, it's like he started this spiritual journey with Jesus. And for example, he came home one day and he had this story, and I had found his gold necklace, and it had a cross on it. And so he tells me this story about Jesus, and he's like, I think Jesus is with me. And I was like, well, that's funny, because I found this to give this to you today. And then that weekend, my aunt gave him a rosary. And so he's been interested in Jesus and learning about Jesus and embracing him and Christ consciousness. And my family watching that, it's just like, what? And I'm like, okay, like, let's say that my youngest gains a spiritual affinity for Vishnu. Like, I bet your ass I am going to dive into that with him and ask questions and wonder and explore it and draw it on paper and, like, whatever, because I don't want them to believe something because I think it's right. Like, I know that real life is real magic. And getting to watch it in a 7-year-old, it's just like shocking. It's shocking for adults. And it was so cool because I was with my mom and my grandma, and I was like, that's what it means to allow the people you love, and to not get in the way of what is for them and what could shape them. And so, like, how does that feel to you guys? Because to me, like, I think I let that be kind of a marker for me in where I'm at with my level of allowing, because religion is just, it's a hard place for people.
So growing up, I was heavily controlled. And so that's why allowing, the space that I stepped into is so significant for me. But I know the influence that others had on me, that I agreed to subconsciously, mentally. I agreed to that and allowed it to become my identity. And that's not a good place, and that's the place that I stepped into that brought me out of that and broke me out of that, Lacey knows, Jennifer knows, you know, you both of you were there the entire time, you know, it was going down. And so just breaking away from that, I found my identity. I mean, it was very significant. Like, this is something that I totally agree with, that this is a breaking away of, you know, my mind breaking. Lacey's terms here, you know, breaking my mind was very small, but it's happening on the micro and the macro. Like, it's happening. It's the same everywhere, you know, and it's so personal and individual. It has to be on an individual basis. We have to have our own process in finding our identity that is not something that's not us, whether it comes from TV or movies or parents or significant others or kids. You know, I am myself. I am a mother, but I am myself. I'm not just a mom or, you know, just this or just that. You know, I am myself, and I am my full authority. You know, I took all that back, you know, and it was, thinking about it now, you know, I'm stopping because I'm like, it's just happening. Thinking about it now, it would never have happened. I don't believe it would have ever happened like it did without that space of someone allowing me. Absolutely, hands down. Like, absolutely.
For me, I find it interesting because I was raised in a very Catholic family. Um, it and do I think anything's wrong with religion? No, because I think at times we have to have something to believe in to move us forward. And if that's all we know, and if that's all we have experienced, that's what we're going to believe in, right? And so for those of us who go through the process and realize there are things that we may not understand or we may disagree with, or things that we want to explore, that weighed heavily on me. Because even to this day, I walk into a Catholic church and I feel at home. I feel comfort. I feel protected because it was a place I grew up. It was a part of me that I got to experience my music. I performed basically every weekend, you know, singing at different churches and cantering different services. And that part of me, church is home. You know, like my mother was a nun for years prior to leaving the convent. It's ingrained as part of me, and there are aspects of religion that I still connect to, but there are aspects that I don't, and there are things that I question, and the timelines that I see that could all be the same because we all are one. And it was, I don't think anything is negative about religion in the sense that I think we all need it at times. I think we all need something to hold on to until we're presented with something else, right? You know, and for me, that started to shift when I went to college. I started taking a bunch of religion courses and trying to understand, what do I believe versus how was I raised? And that was the first time that I felt like I really got to break away and see for myself what I believed. And then losing both my mother and my father, I was so angry. Religion was like, I was so angry I couldn't see it. I didn't want to participate in it. I was so angry. I used to, and I still probably say, I was angry with God. Like, what in the world? Like, I'm not grown up yet. I'm not ready to be without them, you know? But at the same time, I see all the gifts that it also gave me. It presented me with the ability to explore those things in a way that I understood what I believed. And even though that's still been a personal struggle over the years, and the odd feeling of, I know what feels home to me versus I know my beliefs also don't fully match up here. And so that dichotomy of that within my body and also in my mind sometimes plays tricks. Am I bad because I don't fully believe in all the specific Catholic traditions or the Catholic beliefs, or what does that make me? You know, all of those stories that we want to tell ourselves and like project upon ourselves and project onto others. Because there was a time where I was like, well, religion isn't for anyone. It's bad. Like I went through that phase too. Or I do still feel like religion was essentially created as a means of control. I do see that throughout history and a way that it has forced us to believe in specific things and not seek outside of that. When the way I see things now is all of it can be true. All of it can be a part of the whole. Every aspect of every religion, there's places where they meet. So if we could look at the story of Jesus Christ and also look at the story of Buddha, we see where they match up. We look at the star seeds, the Lemurians and the Atlanteans and the great floods with Noah, the ark, like all of these things intersect. And what if it is all one and we're all just calling it different things? And so I think what we're moving back into now is like this allowing thing is coming up so much because we're going to allow ourselves and others to start to see the all of it. We are going to come back to religion, but it's going to be in a different way in my mind. Like I can see how we're going to start to be able to see people and see their religion and see the story of Jesus Christ as a Christian and see the story of Buddha and make the connections and be able to fully allow the other person instead of saying, well, my religion is better than your religion. We're gonna, for the first time, be able to experience love in a way that we're supposed to experience love. And the reason why I think a lot of times love was kind of snuffed out, and I think it was Lacey and I that discussed this, is that they had to take away love. They had to take away Jesus Christ because he loved the prostitute as much as he loved the king. And when you love like that, they fear you. It creates fear when you can love unconditionally without judgment and fully allow. And so what if it means that we're going to come back to an original truth, maybe? I don't know if you would call it that, but what if we start to actually see that it really is all connected and we were never supposed to be separate to begin with? What if the story is one, but we've been naming it all different things the whole time?
You know, I think it's so amazing because as like a mystic myself, I do have my own visions and my own things that come to me. And what I've been with over the past couple of experiences is something I'm calling the mother. And it's so funny because to me, it is this feeling of unconditional love. And at the same time, the result of that love, I mean, it can be fear. You know, like if I love someone so much, you know, it's like the fear usually increases with that degree. Like, I don't want to lose them, you know, like, or maybe I'm feeling this rage from her because she's so ready to be seen and not thought about. And in my journey, it's been so much about coming out of the mind and into the body. It's been so much about like, oh my gosh, my infinite intelligence is in here. You know, my mystical journey is in here. My correct yes and no is in here. My mind is capable of saying yes to anything, you know, like if I'm sitting here and I'm like, okay, I'm going to start a business. My mind can think of a billion possibilities, but that doesn't mean that it knows which one's right for me. The thing that knows for you, it's in here. Like that infinite spiritual intelligence, it's in here. Everything is in here. you can think anything, you can pick up any thought from anyone, you can go anywhere. But this is what, to me, this is so much what knows for you. And I think, being seen, it will be so much more about choosing the person right in front of you than these unliving fucking things. Like, a thought is not a living thing. A religion, a system, and a set of rules, like in anything besides a human being, like, don't put that shit above a living, breathing, evolving, changing thing, and it doesn't matter if it's from your religion or your science or from your 5th grade teacher. Like, choose the human, believe in their experience, and that, like, is funny because it starts to boil down into there is no right and wrong. I love to have this conversation with Christians because there is a path for everybody, and the path of addiction is just as purposeful as the path that Jesus took. Like, AA as a structure, I think that's as close as you can get to the Hungry Bear. And AA as a structure, I think that is as close as you can get to allowing. So if I were going to pick out of all the structures we've made up to this point, if I were going to pick a religion that's good for all human beings, it would be Alcoholics Anonymous. Okay. Like, it's all so good and it's all so purposeful, and getting to that place of no right, no wrong. You can be your universe. I can be my universe. You realize that all there is progress. Like, we're moving forward in time. We are flying through space on a rock at like billions of miles per hour. Like, it's absolutely ridiculous. You can't turn around and go back there, even if you want to. And so you start to realize, like, oh, I feel where my progress is. And I think that allowing mind is what's so protective, because as soon as someone's trying to like put control measures on you, you feel it in your authority. You're like, I'm out, because you love yourself. Like, you finally love yourself in the way that you've loved everyone else your whole life. And you can pick up those bags and you can move the fuck on by yourself, because you're so in love with yourself, and you're in love with the person who's controlling you. You're just not in love with the mental structures he's putting above himself and yourself. Like, all of those ideas of rights and wrongs. And so it is funny. It does boil down to a lot of things that Buddha may have said or Jesus may have said. And there's so much beauty in all of the religions, and even some of the things that aren't the religions.
And what if that is the all? What if, I know Blue can speak to this so much more eloquently than I, because she sees it, literally sees it. It's like experiencing the ether, like, we're fully here and we're experiencing each other through all floating in time together and floating in each other's neutrinos, right? They're all passing through us. And so what do we do with that? What if we are all the all? What if all religion and all paganism and native traditions, what if it's all correct? What if everything is correct? What if, I don't know, I'm trying to think of something dark, but I don't think there's anything, like that I can think of. What if it's all correct? What
like
if it all has purpose?
If silence, every master is like, it can't be given in words. If silence is what embodies the truth, because silence is everything. And to speak, you have to pick something specific and you have to separate it from the whole. And then you have to talk about it, and then in doing that, you've divided out that thing that you're talking about. And now it can no longer make sense because it's been taken out of the whole. And really, it's just a web of relationships, so it's like the mind can identify, label, measure, compare. It can pick anything out of the whole, and it can think about it and see how much it weighs and write down what color it is. Like, it can see all these things about the thing, but it's like, as soon as you take it away, it's not true anymore. I don't know, like, it's so strange. Like, words aren't even real to me. If I have a Buddhist here and a Christian here, and I can discern that they're saying the same thing. They're just using different words. They can sit and fight about that for hours, but I'm like, in my heart, you're saying the same thing. It's like words don't exist to me. When I say things to people, they take it as themselves anyways. Like, I watch people distort my shit all the time. And I'm just like, whoa, it's wild. Words are wild to me.
Words are totally wild. Like, I get it. I went through this space where I was really hard pressed on words and what they mean to me, what they mean to you. What does the word that I just said mean to me? And then what is your definition of that word? And it can be two totally different things. And we experience that word based off of our own personal definition of that word. If I say a tree and you say a tree, you don't see the picture of the tree in my head when I say tree. You could be thinking about a little short tree and I could be thinking about a big tall tree. It's different, but we're using the same word, and it's the same with anything, and it's the mind. You were talking about the all and how the mind can pick things out and pull it out and separate it. That's what it does to us. That's why we feel separated from each other. Our mind has separated us. We're alone in our things. We're alone in our thoughts. Nobody knows how we feel. Nobody knows what we go through. The mind separates us from everything, from each other. And it's hard at work. It pulls things out and it separates things, and we are the all. We're part of the all. Like, all means all. And I believe that we are, if we can get past the mind, we are very much on our way to experiencing absolute truth. What we say is truth right now is relative to something else. It's a comparison, or it's like Lacey said, it compares and it measures. And once we get past those things within the mind, we have a much different experience. And it's once you're past the mind, whether it's silence, isolation, whatever you choose, whatever brings you there, is dipping your toes in the all and experiencing absolute truth, and not something relative to or dividing, like, my belief is right and your belief is wrong. Like, nobody can ever tell anybody that, and all these religion. I think religion, I'll go in religion a minute. I think every spiritual path serves some people beautifully, and until someone is their own authority, they will look for one outside of themselves. Whether they don't even have to be a spiritual leader. It could be a spouse or a parent. They can be codependent to anything, addiction. They will find their authority if it's not themselves. The most freeing thing in my life is me being my own personal authority. And that doesn't mean nobody tells me what to do. That means I am aware of the decisions that I make and why I make them. It is very important to me to know what I believe and why I believe it. If I can't come up with something other than somebody told me, then I need to reevaluate what I'm believing and why I'm believing it.
I think that too plays into that stuff, that period that you went through with intent, and trying to show me that intent plays into this whole word issue that we have. And even this week, I had someone tell me, I struggle with words and like the miscommunications and I really do. I used to think it was like my problem, or whatever, because it was so, in my experience, that everything I said was like totally misconstrued, not understood. And I was like, I'm totally being clear. What's wrong with me? And I think that also is a period that we go through, but that is where the intent does come into play. And I couldn't ever see that. I know Blue, kept saying, okay, now look at this from the outside, step back. What was the intent? The intent matters in these scenarios. So if it's something that others are experiencing, like when you step back from it, what are you seeing in that? Are you seeing that somebody is actually misinterpreting what you're saying, or are you sending out the wrong message unintentionally by the words you're using? Or what does it look like? Instead of going to that blame, shame, guilt thing, assess the intent of the way in which it was received or perceived on the other end, because that does have a lot to do, and that's assuming the positive intent until we fully can understand. Because they talk about that a lot in business, right? They say, assume positive intent until you know. I don't know that we ever get to that no, but then sometimes you can assess what that person's intent was by the words they use. And maybe we misinterpret things sometimes, and maybe we're quick to pass judgment on somebody, or, whatever the scenario is. But intent definitely plays a part in all the miscommunications and all the things that are happening with words right now, because we are in different places in our journey. And we all have different understandings of what a tree is to us. So it's all based upon our life's experience, is how we receive and give information. And so it's going to be different for each and every one of us. So intent does matter. Did I ever think I would get to that place? No. But it keeps playing out, and more people are talking about it. And Blue kept telling me, you'll get it. It'll come to you one day. It'll happen.
When I speak about intent, it's funny because you guys are doing it in a way where it's almost like about the other. And when I speak to people about intent, I'm like, I might place weight on intention, and that would be to protect myself, especially as someone who has this like channel of initiation and who can really like shock and piss people off with maybe like just being myself, and it's like, if I know that my intent is to allow and to let that all be, it's like, so what do I allow? At this point, I see it as I allow the human being in front of me, but that doesn't mean that I can allow a mental pattern to be more important than me, or one of your mental patterns to be more important than you. So it's like, when someone is just going through, let's say that they have a health condition because they're eating balloons or something silly, okay? And they're just so upset about it, and they're so mad, and they're just sitting there and they're just eating balloons. They're like, I don't know why I'm like this, like I might try to just separate what they are from that behavior, and be like, I think that you have this like pattern, this behavior, this learned thing that is hurting you, but this learned thing, it's not you, and I think that just like letting it be there and accepting it, and just like writing out that trauma over time without hating yourself every time you eat one, like eat it and love it. Once you stop hating it so badly in yourself, like it'll do its thing and show you where it came from. Maybe it'll go away. Maybe you'll stop eating balloons. But it's important to me to help people see, like, my intent is to allow you. It's not to allow an unliving thing to hurt you. You know what I mean? So it's weird for me because it is turning into, I see the person for the whole that they are. And I see how maybe they're dishonoring that whole and thinking that like some isolated picked up thing is a part of the whole that they are, when that in and of itself is just like a misunderstanding. And if I know my intention, I know where my heart's at. Even if they look at me and they're like, well, you just hate me because I don't eat red balloons, like, and they get all these crazy ideas about me being the devil, it's like, that's okay, because I know where I'm coming from. So it's like intent can be a very valuable tool, not only for the other that you're like passing it off to, but also like to know where you're coming from and to be that protection if someone turns around on you, in defense of something that they're not.
But that's also planting the seed within someone about the awareness of what it could possibly be. So that is just as important as the intent, right? So,
and that's like one too. It's like you allow that person to just do the thing, and it's funny because I don't think that we get rid of trauma by hating it. Like, if I have a child in a session and they're having suicidal thoughts, and it's interesting, like I've had multiple suicidal thought kids, and multiple of them have not been allowed to stay at their therapist because of their age and the fact that they're having suicidal thoughts. So by the time they get to me, they are so ashamed of the fact that they are thinking about this. And I'm normally like, yo, your mind can think about anything, and it could have picked that up from anyone, anywhere, any video, any idea, any thought about someone dying, grandma, anything. And once it's in there, it'll haunt you if you hate it. If you're like, I hate myself for feeling like this. Like, why do I want to kill myself? Like embracing it as yourself. You're like, I don't want this. I don't want this. And it's just getting louder. And it's almost like as soon as you can just be like, you know what? I accept this belief is here. It doesn't mean it's true for me, but it can come, go, whatever. I am not going to kill myself. This thought cannot control me, and I can even love it. And it's like, as soon as you turn around and you face the thing and you just like approach it, it stops torturing the kids. It's like, it's so wild. Like the trauma just needs to be like accepted and allowed, and then it will go away. But if it's hated and you're like blamed and shamed for it forever and ever and ever, it's like it just eats you alive even more, and you do more things to try to stop it, which is just amplifying it. So it's so strange in that place.
Like for me, it became like the cry. Like when I would get to that intense period of suffering, it was the only word I could use, even though I know I could never follow through, but it was the only word I understood to communicate to somebody how much pain I was in. Like, how can you not understand that this is my cry for you to see me, to see how much pain I am in emotionally, physically, whatever it happened to be about a specific thing, maybe. And it wasn't until Blue pointed some of those things out to me, like, okay, why are you in that place right now? Can you accept that that's the place you come to where you have to make a choice? Because that's your place of choice right there. You're either going to choose to do it or you're going to make a choice in a different way. Like that's the place of choice. You're crying out for someone to see you, to acknowledge your hurt, to acknowledge your pain. And so I do see it that way in a sense, like sometimes that's the only word we have to cry out to say, can you just see me? Can you just see? Yeah, the rejection from that. Yeah, exactly. And all the abandonment and all the stuff, right? But when it's been pointed out to me, when I get to that place, it's like the only word I have to express the intense emotional pain I'm feeling. And so until I understood that was the only word that seemed to like have people see me and hear my pain, I don't know. It's like, it's that funny thing. Like, I know I'll never do it. I know it would never be my intent to actually follow through with it. but it is a cry for somebody to see the pain that I'm in. And so it goes back to the word thing, you say that in a psychologist's office and they're going to send somebody to lock you up, right? But what if it is really about not having the words to express the pain that we're truly feeling? What if we don't have another means of expression because that is the word that has been shown to us, or modeled for us, or understood for us? Like, what if we have no other ways to communicate it and be heard? Or, it's that whole kids who get in trouble just to be recognized. They don't care if it's bad recognition or good recognition, they just want to be seen. So to me, it almost comes out to the same thing, right? Why can we not, or why can society not allow that to be the word or the cry, maybe, that we just need to be seen? We need to be heard, because then it seems like people come when that word is used. You know what I mean? So we've almost taught that behavior. And I see it now for what it is in me, and what brings me to use that word in my situations, because I'm in such intense pain. It's not like I would, but it's like I have no other way to describe it to you. And so what if that could be seen instead of let's rush to lock you up?
It's crazy because I always think of like the mental structure first and then the meaning it's filled with. And the meaning to me is always more words. And it's like you're saying you're putting the feeling above the mental structure. And you're like, no, I built that mental structure in order to hold feelings that I just like could not accept inside of myself, and that I could not find anybody out there to accept inside of me either. And so automatically it has to be the word suicide, because you can't think of anything worse than that. It's like, I just wish every suicidal person would come to me so that I could just like love them. And because why is that okay for someone to just be trying to like understand the amount of pain inside themselves and just to want that pain to end? And then for the person on the other end to just reject that over and over, whether it's mom or spouse or therapist, like, why can't anybody just like, why can't someone just look at that person and be like, I could see myself in their shoes, and then just love them, like and that is what it is. It's like, you can't see a human as a whole human until you accept that you're capable of doing and feeling and being everything you've ever seen. If you look at that homeless person and you think that you would have ended up differently, you have no fucking idea what he lived through, or how he got to that place, or how valuable that place could be for his future. And so to lay judgment on that, it's so incredible to me, the way that we like have this sense of superiority, and we use it to not love others. But like the real thing that's happening there is that you're not loving yourself. Like, you've told yourself, like, that's not possible inside me. Like, and because of that, you've separated from yourself and you've separated from everyone else, and you can't love that, and it's just like, I don't know.
Forgot I was on mute. Looks like we lost Blue for a moment there, as she's out in some terrain, and so I know that
in the desert
connections are difficult. But I would say, that is what this journey is about. If we're wrapping this up, it's about fully seeing and fully being on this exploration, fully being this internal astronaut, where we can fully see ourselves for the first time, where we can fully see someone else, where we can experience everything that exists and the perfection that exists. And within that journey of self, right? So I think that's what's been so important for us to kind of come together in this and see the perfection of this journey that we've been on within. Like COVID coming was perfection in a sense, because we had no choice but to look at ourselves. There wasn't enough people around us to not look at ourselves, right? And so it's understanding that internal part of us, the things that go on inside of us, that there is no one outside of us that holds our truth. And we can continue to keep moving from person to person and saying, they're my authority and they're my authority. But really, when it comes down to it, there is no one outside of ourselves that is ever going to have any of our answers. And so that's what the journey of the internal astronaut is all about. And for all of us to come together and explore that together and what this looks like together on this journey, to be able to help plant seeds for other people to acknowledge their journey through self and their internal exploration of space within us, the internal astronaut. Like, what does that look like? What can we experience? What is it like inside of me, instead of saying, oh, I'm going to hand that over to you? And I think just having that potential is going to lead us to limitless possibilities and the ability to plant the seeds for others and help them, be a guide, not be their authority, but be a guide to have somebody that they can reach out to, that they can have somebody to listen to experience the things with them on their journey of their exploration of self. And so I think, if we're wrapping it all up, I think today was really important to talk about the allowance and what that looks like for everybody internally, and what that journey is going to look like collectively, the journey back to self, and not putting that authority in the government or in the health companies or in our jobs, and what it looks like to come back to the self and start living as ourself and fully allowing ourselves to experience life while we're here on earth, instead of giving away our life to other people.
Yes. And Blue, I see that you're on here. Do you want to share like a wrap up from you before you get kicked off in the desert again?
Yeah. So I don't know. I just think the journey is a beautiful thing. And I have spent most of my life allowing outside things to be authority to me and to choose my life and to wrap my thought patterns around that and my own personal beliefs about myself and the world. And self, allowing the thoughts, allowing the beliefs to come up, and as they come, allow myself the grace to grow. Even in the fear, it can be a very scary place to say no to others who we have allowed to be our authority. Sometimes that can be dangerous, and sometimes we have to remove ourselves completely from those influences and head out to the woods or head to the forest. That was where I found mine. And just let go, just go with it and allow myself to have the emotions and fear, but just keep moving through it. It's just a beautiful thing. It is indeed.
I love that. I feel like, Jennifer, you hit a lot on like the collective end, and then Blue, you just hit a lot on the individual end. And I feel like you guys wrapped it up so well. Like, I think that maybe I'll wrap up like in the middle as like I have always wanted to be a leader. I've always wanted to help other people, and in 2018, when I started seeing the perfection of others, and I realized that they didn't need me to tell them what to do or how to talk or how to walk, like that was like one of the most devastating things I've ever been through, because I had to sort out, like, was I ever really helping them now that I see it like this? Like I had to accept all of that. And then I had to like piece together what leadership was going to look like in the future by watching and observing over like a 4-year period. And at this point in time, I don't see anybody as a leader unless they know that they don't know. If they are not in a constant learning process with life, they're not a leader. If the leader that is helping you, like, let's say that you are on like a therapy session with someone, if they've already learned everything that there is to learn and they know every answer for you, like they're not the leader you're looking for. I feel like leadership is turning so much more into being space for them to find that right answer for them. And that's going to be what a real leader looks like. We don't know what that's going to be like, within our collective structures. We don't know what that's going to look like, taste like, sound like, smell like, and we do have a big transition to make. And I like to look around at the timing of things. I do believe that there are people who are arriving maybe a little ahead of where some people might arrive, and then maybe a little ahead of where some people might arrive. And within our place in that domino effect, we can just turn around and help the people right there, those people that show up. And if you can be that source of allowing for them, give it a couple of years and you're going to watch them step into their divinity. You're going to watch them be allowing themselves. You're going to watch them start communities where they're allowing others, and slowly but surely, one person at a time, we are going to move from this codependency and trauma that we've always called love into something that is so much fuller, wholer, wonderful, full of curiosity, discovery. Like we could have the potential to finally play, we could have the potential to like step into the finale of like this era of human being that we are now, and to actually appreciate and love each other, not out of comparison, but because you're there, because you travel through time with me, and I'll continue traveling through time with you. And so it is such a beautiful thing. And I'm so lucky to have you two in my life. I love you guys so much. Thank you for doing this video.